What's up, everybody? It's Joe from JLW Games coming at you with another cool video back in No Limits 2. So when we left off, we did complete the layout of the kind of the basic first coaster. So I thought it was appropriate to go ahead and move on to bigger and better things. So I didn't care about doing the environment on that one really. I just kind of want to get into the better stuff because, you know, that was a basic coaster. It's nothing special, but this one we're going to be sure it is special. So let's get into it. Alright, so let's go ahead and create our park, or, let's see, settings, park, everything is not there. Okay, so we gotta go to new, and let's create a new park. Let's just call it, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I don't know what I clicked, but let's call it Steel no, let's just call it Steel Park, and then we'll name the park coaster. So this one's going to be called Steel Park because we're going to make a steel coaster. So creating background. I think it might be frozen, so it will take a second to load. There it is. Alright, let's create a new coaster and call it Steel of Doom. I don't know. I might change it later. We'll figure that out later. Alright, so let's go to the top perspective. And we can move around and stuff like that. And now what I'm going to do first is go ahead and start creating this coaster. So, we need to make sure we go to track. Oh, the buttons look a little bit different. I don't know why that is. That's interesting. Alright, so let's go ahead and start Vertex. So let's just place it here and here. Now it is snapping right now, and it's a very broad snap, as in it can still be, it almost feels like it's not snapping. That's how much. Okay. So that's we might make it just a little bit longer. About right there. Perfect. Alright, let's go ahead and raise these up just a little bit. So let's raise the Y to about 10 meters. That's usually about where I like to have my height. There we go. Alright, so here, this is going to be our station. And let's go ahead and get to the coaster type before we get too far. So what we're going to do is go to Coaster Properties, Style, and see what we have. We got a 4D coaster, which is interesting, but I don't think we're going to do that just yet. Classic Steel Looping Coaster, which could be a possibility. Classic Steel Looping Coaster, Corkscrew Coaster, and I have more expertise in a B&M, so we might just try that. We can do a hyper coaster, which might actually be a little bit easier to start off with because it's more airtime hills rather than inversions and stuff. But we could do inverted. There's honestly, we should just do a twisted sit down. That's very basic, and we can do that. So let's do Worn Type New, because it's a new roller coaster being opened for us. And a lot of people like to do the heart line of current coaster style for the spline position. Helps out a little bit. Train 1, car 1, 6, but most usually have 8 per train. And we'll get back to the colors later because we're not really doing that right now. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into this. Go to top, click on here, and we will continue adding vertices. Now I want to continue to make this straight. That way when we make a little curve here, we still have our station. We're going to make this go this way a little bit, kind of diagonally for our lift hill. Let's see. let's make that a little bit broader, a little bit bigger of a curve. It's always smaller than what it looks. Always ends up being smaller than what it looks. So let's adjust this as best as we can to match what we need it to do. Alright, let's check that. Not a bad curve. If I lower it just a little bit. Just to give it a little bit of a thing. If you hear a really weird noise in the background, that is my washing machine. It is going crazy right now. So, sorry about that. My washer machine just won't be quiet. Alright, so you kind of want to adjust these so they're perfect. As perfect as possible. Let's see how tall this is. About 8.4, which is pretty good height from dropping from 10 meters. We can even drop this a little bit, make it smoother. And we'll go back to the top, and now that the height's adjusted, we can adjust these back to smooth it out a little bit. Alright, see if we're satisfied with it in perspective. Doesn't look too bad. And now for the best thing to do, highlight what you want to smooth out, and we're going to do depump vertices. This is pretty much your smooth tool. So there we go. And let's go ahead and let's try and start adding rolls now and see what happens. So no lat G-force is what you always want to do for the smoothest results. Let's add that there. And I want that towards the end. So we got a smidge of a little bit of a curve here going into this. And then I want to create a little bit of a straight piece here to give a little bit of break section right before we go into the lift hill. So what I want to make sure is all three of these are straight. So we'll do make straight 2D top so they stay the same height. Height-wise. Alright, this is at 8.5 meters, which is a pretty good height for us. Alright. Now what we want to do, I'm going to go ahead and move to the left, or you can do right. Right might be better. No, maybe left. So you can see where we ended up there. And I like to add vertice here. Alright, go about what the angle you want your lift to be at. So click that and you can adjust this. So I want my lift to be at about that angle is pretty good. So we need to go to top, and obviously it didn't make it straight. So we need to select all these again and make sure they are straight. So make straight 2D top. And as you can see, we got the start of our lift hill. Alright, the next part is going to be the straight section of the lift hill. So if we go to the right again, or left, I prefer left here, you always want to click on this right before you click add vertice, and we'll add a section of track here. Now that's a pretty steep lift hill, so I might actually lower this just a smidge, so it's not as steep of a lift hill. That's a little bit better. And we can see how many meters this is by double clicking. It's at 33.8. Now, just depending on how tall you want your coaster to be, again, this is always not going to be straight, so what we need to do is go to the top and adjust it to do that, and just highlight all these, make straight 2D top. Alright, so we got a lift hill going. And you know, it's a little bit steep for a B&M lift hill, so let's go back to the left and see if we can straighten out. Well, see, we need to straighten this out anyways, so that's about a good angle right there. Let's try and move it over just a little bit again. A lot of adjusting. I'm sure there's better ways to do this, but this is the way I've always found to do lift hills and stuff. It's just how I've always done it. So, and of course you can always go here and adjust, like, say, how many meters do I want it to be? Say if I wanted like 45 meters, we can do that. And we'll just have to make this go further out this way. It's probably a more effective way to do it, honestly. So make straight 2D top. Just got to make it a little bit longer. That way it's not as steep. Alright, let's check that. That's pretty good. Now, I'm more of a feet guy, so I'm not that familiar with meters. So I usually just use a converter online or something, so you can figure out what your how high you want it in feet. This doesn't look like it's too bad of height, but I think I might want it just a smidge taller. So let's go ahead and bump it up to 50. Alright, and we're going to drag this out just a little bit more, so it's not so there. Alright. Highlight it all and make straight. Yeah, that's good. Now, you're going to have a little bit more added height, you know, at the top, because you got to level it out. To do this, we'll add a vertice. And you want to make the first one about as straight as possible, and then the next one you want to level it out. So the first one you kind of want to make it straight with the other node. And you know, if you can always adjust it as needed. You know, I always just kind of try to keep the proportions. And you want to make all this straight again. It's important, you know, when you do the straight, it automatically straightens it out perfectly for you. And as you can see, we got a perfect lift hill. Well, close to perfect. I mean, it's pretty close to perfect, I think. So there you go. You have a lift hill for a B&M coaster. And then, of course, looking at this, you can always try and adjust that to make it more perfect. So, and I might have messed up the straightness, so always do that. Alright, so going in perspective, this is what we got so far. Our first little curve. And then we can go ahead and add rolls to this. I always add them. You want to add them quite frequently, that way it keeps the track level throughout the entire thing. Alright, we need to straighten this back. Oh. Yeah, let's... And making it straight, it might have adjusted it a little bit the way I didn't want it to. But that's okay, we can always adjust it. I mean, it doesn't look bad right now. It looks pretty good. You know, it doesn't have to be super perfect. I mean, that looks pretty good right there. I mean, this could be adjusted a little bit, but overall, you're not going to notice it very much, and I think it turned out pretty well. So that's pretty much it. You know, there's a lot of detail work going into creating your coasters if you want them to look good. I'm no expert by no means, but I do enjoy playing, and I needed to play it a lot more often to get a little more stuff. So I hope you guys found this video useful, and in the next part we'll go ahead and get into some more elements in the first drop and stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great day and an even cooler tomorrow. Thanks for joining me. Goodbye.